The next option is Trim Surface. This option allows us to segment or split the desired surface. The selected curve must lie on the surface and must form an enclosed loop if it is fully contained within the surface boundaries. The surface trimming can be done in 4 ways: by curve, by plane, by connectivity, or by angle. Next option is Merge or Reapproximate Surfaces. This option allows merging of two surfaces with gap at their seam. If we select NURBS data surfaces, we will be given the option to convert them into phase state data before merging. It also has the provision for reapproximating surface. This option allows us to create one surface from a set of selected surfaces while reapproximating the surface boundaries to a given tolerance. The next option is Create Curtain Surface. It creates a surface extruded from a selected curve and projected onto a target surface. Created surface is always normal to the target surface. It also allows us to trim the targeted surface. Next operation is Extend Surface. This option allows us to extend the existing surface by different methods. One of the method is Extend Curve to Surface method. This allows us to extend selected curve to selected surface. The extension of the curve creates a surface. The extension can be done in 3 ways. First way is by closet. This projects the selected curve to selected surface and creates new surface normal to the selected surface. Other way is tangential from edge, which extends the surface edge to the selected surface. The surface is extended in a direction normal to the selected edge. The extension follows the curvature of the original surface. Trim option, if enabled, allows us to split the targeted surface at the T-junction. Another method by which surface can be extended is Extend Surface at Edge. This option allows us to extend surface at selected edge. We need to select the surface to be extended and edge at which the surface is to be extended along with the distance. The extension value is taken as relative to the original surface edge length. ICM has the provision of providing the absolute value of extension distance by enabling the absolute distance option. The last option in surface creation operation is Standard Shapes. This option allows us to create some standard geometrical shapes such as cuboid, sphere, cylinder, hole, etc. For creating the box, we have to specify the XYZ size along with box origin. The other way, we can create a box by entity bound. It creates a bounding box around the selected entities. The next entity, sphere, can be created by specifying the start and end angle of the sphere. The angle in degree are measured from the normal of center plane of sphere. The radius can be specified either by location or radius option. The next is cylinder, which can be created by specifying the base and top radius. Also, we can create a hole by giving the radius and the surface on which the hole is to be drilled. Till now, we have seen operations for point, curve, and surface generation and modification options. Now, we will move on to some interesting facts in ICMCFD. The most important thing to keep in mind is that highest geometrical entity in ICMCFD is surface. There is no concept of solid or volume in ICMCFD. ICMCFD is a dedicated tool for meshing. As we know from our previous lectures that there is something called CFD domain which needs to be discretized to solve the governing equations. A closed loop of surface forms a 3D domain in case of 3D geometries, or closed loop of curve form 2D domain in case of 2D geometries. Hence, to distinguish closed loop of surface from space, the term body is defined. It is also known as material point. This implies volumetric domain on which governing equations will be solved. Now the question would be, why is it needed? The prime thing is to define and distinguish volumetric domain is where the mesh is generated. If we have n number of domains, then n number of body points need to be created. If user doesn't specify it, then ICM automatically detects closed loop and gives the default name with numeric extension. Interestingly, term body is the label of domain visible to CFD solver. Materials which we specify in solver are assigned to respective body. Now let us see how this body is created in ICMCFD. There are two ways by which this operation can be done. One method is creating by topology. Bodies can be created by topology either from the entire model or from selected surfaces. There should not be any gap between the closed surface. A body can be created for each closed volume. The figure shown in the slide consists of cube inside a cube and the other one is hemisphere. In either of the case, if the entire model method is chosen or if all the surfaces are selected with the selected surface method, two bodies will be created from the two closed volume. Each body can then have separate volume meshed if needed. In case of complicated geometries, we suggest other option, that is by material point. By material option allows us to create a body at the desired location. Either we can create it at the centroid of the 2 points or at the specified location in space. One thing should be very clear, that the body is just an identity for the ICMCFD by which it decides where to create the mesh. Hence there should be only one body point within the closed domain. Figure shows a concentric converging duct. We will create a body point inside the inner duct, say by part name water. Hence the mesher will create a volumetric mesh inside the duct. If we are interested in the thickness as well, we have to create one more body point between inner duct and the outer duct, which will be named as solid. Now the mesher will create the mesh in solid part also. Now let us look at some geometry repair operations in ICMCFD. This is the fifth option in Geometry Functional tab as highlighted in the figure. The main objective in CAD repair is to detect and close gaps between neighboring surfaces. If we click on the Repair Surface option, a window will expand, which includes a different option. Let us have a gist of these options as we proceed from left to right as follows. Build diagnostic topology, close holes, remove holes, stitch match edges, surface extension, untrim surface, split by curvature, modify surface, bolt hole detection, button detection, fillet detection. We might wonder, why do we need to repair geometry? Mostly geometries are imported from CAD software. Hence, there is always some data loss or mismatch. There may be some surfaces missing, maybe some holes and gaps in the geometries, maybe some extra geometrical entities such as points, curves and surfaces. These need to be cleaned up as the mesher requires watertight or closed loop geometry. Hence, for complicated assemblies, we may need to spend major time of pre-processing using CAD repair. So let us look at some different operations available for CAD repair in ICMCFD. Let us start with first option in repair operations, which is very interesting and highly used, that is building topology. This option allows us to create series of curves and points necessary for geometry. It automatically builds curves and points for meshing constraint. It creates curves and points for surface edges and corners depending on proximity of surface edges to each other. If curves are within a geometric tolerance, they are merged together as one. The geometric tolerance value should be set reasonably to ignore small gaps but not to allow leakage or remove important features of geometry. Generally, it is recommended that once we import geometry from CAD software, first of all delete all existing curves and points. Then apply building topology, which will automatically generate required curves and points for meshing as per tolerance specified. Before getting into detail, we will have a look at various terminologies used in build topology. After applying building topology, we will notice that curves may have either of the four colors: yellow, red, blue or green. Yellow indicates those adjacent to only one surface. Red indicates curves shared by two surfaces. Blue indicates curves shared by three or more surfaces. Green indicates unattached surface. Generally, a model with red curve is needed along with blue curves at T-junction. We can enable the color visibility by right-clicking on the curve in family tree and activate color by count. Now we will see in detail what are the different options available in building topology. Tolerance is geometric tolerance value between surface edges. This value should be reasonably set to ignore small gaps. The recommended tolerance is approximately 1/10 the size of the average mesh size. The next option is filter by angle. This gives us the control over where topology is to be extracted. No topology will be extracted if tangency of two adjacent surfaces is less than the specified angle. We can select part name by newly created entities. If inherited is enabled, it will keep the newly created points and curves in the same part from where they were extracted. The single curve cleanup option, if enabled, merges single edge curves only those which are within the specified single edge tolerance. The surfaces at T-junction will be split and trimmed at the common edge by using the split surface at T-connection option. The join edge curve combine edges with defined angle to concatenate smaller curves into a single curve. Build topology option also has the provision to select the whole geometry or part of it to apply building topology. By default, all parts in the model tree are selected for this operation, but if needed, we can apply to only visible parts or selected entities from the screen select. Using part by part option, building topology is applied to one part at a time. The option delete unattached curves and points delete curves which are standalone entities, that is, any green curves and unattached point. If keep dormant as dormant is enabled, then those entities which were made dormant by the user will be kept dormant when topology is built. We will see that what dormant entities are in the coming slides. Let us see the usage of tolerance by illustration. As we know that red curve indicates that two surfaces are attached and blue indicates more than two curves. If we have a look at surfaces in figure shown, then we notice that there must be two set of blue curve rather than one as shown in the figure. In this case, tolerance is set greater than thickness. ICM found that one of the surfaces as duplicate within tolerance and hence removed. Thus, care should be taken that small features to be captured should fall within tolerance which may cause damages to geometry. Hence, we suggest a general thumb rule for setting tolerance. Recommended tolerance is approximately 1/10 the average mesh size. But most of the times, default tolerance value works pretty well. But we should always examine it. Not to worry now, by experience, we will be comfortable with setting tolerance. The next option in geometry fixing operation is check geometry. This option is used for basic analysis of geometry imported from any other CAD software. This option provides information regarding small features of geometry or about any other feature as per requirement. For example, single or multiple surfaces, curvatures, areas, etc. Next option is close holes. This option allows us to close holes in surface to create new surface. For this, we need to select curves representing edges of hole. Once selection is done, after clicking apply, it asks for confirmation along with preview of newly created surface. We can close multiple holes by this operation. Next operation is remove holes. This option allows us to remove holes in geometry formed by a closed loop of edges in one surface. The difference between closed holes and remove hole is that here new surface is not generated, instead it is removed. Next option is stitch match edges. This option allows us to stitch or match edges separated by gap. There are four methods. First is match, in which adjacent surfaces are modified so that one edge matches the other. Next is trim, which recalculates the intersection of two adjacent surfaces of gap. Next is fill, which creates new surface used for coplanar surfaces. Then the last one is blend, which creates ruled spline surfaces. The last operation is split folded surface. This option allows us to split surfaces which has curvature. The selected surfaces are split where surfaces are folded at an angle greater than the specified maximum angle. The maximum angle option measures from each end of the surface. We can also transform geometries in ICMCFD. This is the sixth option in Geometry Functional tab. Let us have a gist of these options as we proceed from left to right as follows. First is the translate, then rotate, then mirror geometry, scale, translate and rotate by using 3 points or curve to curve. We will be discussing the above options in detail in coming slides. The first option is translate geometry. This option allows us to translate geometry at desired location. There are two methods to translate geometrical entities. First one is by explicitly specifying offset distance of translation for all three directions. The other one is by specifying translation vector. In this method, we have to select 2 points which decide the direction in which entity is to be translated, and we have to specify distance of translation. This option allows us to create number of copies of selected entities by enabling the copy option. To add newly created copies of entities to a new part, click Increment Part icon. A window will expand which includes all parts in model tree. If a part is selected, new entities will be placed in new part named old part _ 0. For multiple copies, each copy will be placed in a separate part. For example, curve _1, curve _2, curve _3, etc. Next operation is rotate geometry. This option allows us to rotate geometrical entities. We need to specify axis of rotation either of x, y, z or vector through 2 points defining axis. Along with this, we have to specify angle of rotation. A positive value of angle of rotation indicates anticlockwise rotation of geometry and vice versa. Also, we need to specify center of rotation, which can be either origin, centroid of geometry or user specified. This option also has provision of making copies and increment parts of selected geometries. The next operation is reflect geometry or mirror operation. This option allows us to create a reflection of selected geometrical entities at any desired location in space. We need to specify axis of plane about which mirror is desired. This axis can be either of x, y, z or vector through 2 points defining axis. Also, we need to specify center of reflection, which can be either origin, centroid of geometry or user specified. This option also has provision of making copies and increment parts of selected geometries. Next operation is scale geometry. This option allows us to scale up or down geometrical entities in one or multiple directions. We have to provide scale factor and center of transformation, which can be either origin, centroid of geometry or user selected. This option also has provision of making copies and increment part of selected geometries. The last operation allows us to translate and rotate geometry at the same time. This option helps us to achieve desired target in one go. There are 3 methods by which we can translate and rotate geometry, out of which we will discuss first 2 which are used frequently. The first method is by 3 point and 3 points. Here total 6 points need to be provided. It has a defined sequence of selection of points. We can't select randomly any 6 points. First 3 points will be reference for entity to be transferred, and second set of 3 points will be used to define transformation, that is desired location. The resulting geometry will be such that first point of selected entity and first point of desired location will match, indicating translation. It means entity is translated to desired location. Now it needs to be rotated in such a way that it should match. Hence, second point indicates direction from first to second point, and plane is defined by third point. This is a bit difficult to understand unless and until we try it on our own. Try this operation on 2 small cubes at defined location as shown in next slide. Try different configuration to match different faces of cubes. This could help us to understand the option better. The other method by which we can translate and rotate geometry is by curve and curve. In this method, we use a curve as reference to transform another curve. If parameter 0 is used, result will be matching of beginning of both curves. From parameter 0 to 0.5, directions will be matched. For parameter 1, the plane defined by end of the curves will be matched. In this slide, first method 3.3 is demonstrated. As clearly seen from the figure, we have to match green cube with blue one. Look at 3 points selected for first entity and second entity. The first point of first entity will match first point of target. The selected entity will be translated to that location but with same orientation. Further, it will be rotated in the specified direction by second point, and again rotated to make alignment with plane defined by third point. The whole operation is done in one click. Another interesting option available in ICMCFD is Restore Dormant Entity. This option restores dormant curves and points. Curves and points can be made dormant either by deleting them with Delete Permanently option disabled, through building topology with feature angle and filter point curves enabled, or through feature detection tools. If a curve or point is dormant, it will not be recreated while building topology. But build topology may make it active. When a curve or a point is made dormant, the curve or point is still in database and can be restored through this feature. Thus, connectivity between surfaces still exists. Dormant curves and points can also be displayed by right-clicking on curves and points display trees and selecting Show Dormant. Then question may arise, what's the need to restore it? For example, a surface is attached to a set of curves that is attached to a set of points. This information is needed for flood fill operation, patch-based meshing, and many other geometry operations that require connectivity information. When a curve is made dormant, the curve is still in the database and can be restored through this feature at any point of time. The next option in Geometry Functional tab is Delete Point, as highlighted in figure shown. There are 3 checkboxes available with this option as seen in the figure. The Delete Unattached, if enabled, deletes unattached points, that it deletes all points not used by any of the curve. The next one, Delete Permanently, if enabled, permanently deletes the selected points and removes them from database. This option allows us to delete selected points permanently, hence will not make it dormant. And the third one, Join Incident Curve, if enabled, joins the curves connected to the point. If two curves are attached at a point and they do not form a sharp angle, then if the point is deleted, this point will automatically concatenate the curve. The Delete All Dormant Point tab deletes all dormant points, and hence there would be no information in database. Similarly, delete option is available for higher geometrical entities in ICMCFD, that is delete curves, surfaces, and delete bodies respectively, as highlighted in the figure shown. More or less similar kind of operations as seen in the previous slide are also available for these options. Thank you for viewing this particular session in our lecture series. If you have any queries, please post them on our e-learning portal.